That's the one I would take every time.
Uh-huh. Very nice.
Doesn't
I'm first going to look at you in the impact position because it's the most important. Everything the ball does, how far it goes, how high it goes, how much it spins and curves, is a direct response to the laws of physics and motion at the brief moment of impact. On the left is Tiger hitting an iron. This is video I took at last year's US Open. On the right is Grant Wade hitting the driver. Grant was a PGA Tour player during the 90s and now is one of the top instructors of tour players. Grant's teaching partner is a good friend of mine, Joe Mayo, who lives in Las Vegas. Grant was considered by many as having one of the best and most fundamentally sound golf swings. At impact, they both have the majority of their weight on the left side. In fact, the average pro will have 85 to 90% of their weight on the left side at impact. I've drawn a red box from the center of their ankles to the top of their head, and you can see that the red line off their left foot is passing right through their belt buckle, showing how the center of their mass is right on top of their left foot. They both have extended arms through impact. Their elbows are close together and not separating. Having extended arms and weight forward allows them to control the low point of their arc of their swing. When hitting the iron, this fundamental allows the placement of the low point to be in front of the ball, so that they hit the ball first and then the ground, producing the maximum compression of the golf ball. These fundamentals also allows for the highest level of consistency in controlling the face angle and club path during impact, so that you in turn have the highest level of consistency in hitting whatever optimal ball flight you want.
Steve, the purpose of swing analysis is not to change the look of the swing just to make it fit some ideal swing model. The sole purpose is to change the negative ball flight that is impacting your score. Now, once a ball flight error begins to occur too frequently, then you must identify the part of the player's swing causing the club to be delivered to the ball in the wrong position. Now, first I want to go over some of your flight scope data with driver and look for any patterns that affect some of your poor shots that impact your score. Your carry distance was certainly adequate to score well from the middle tee box, and the lateral data shows you are not going offline enough to miss too many fairways. But you do have a club head speed in the 90s and should produce a carry distance 20 or 30 yards further. The biggest cause of this loss of distance is the ball comes off the club with too much spin. You are over 4,000 RPMs and need to be under 3,000. Your launch angle is also too low and should be up closer to 15 degrees. A higher launch angle with lower spin will give you more distance without swinging any faster. When we look at the data under club angle, we see some of the contributing factors to your poor launch numbers. You swing down the ball from 3 to 4 degrees to as high as 7 to 9 degrees. To maximize distance, you would need to swing up on the ball 1 or 2 degrees. I should note that your lowest attack angle was down 2.5 degrees and produced the lowest spin rate of 4,100. Right now you play a nice controlled fade, which is from your leftward path being from 10 to 7 degrees with a leftward face angle around 4 to 8 degrees. This will produce a rightward curve. The difference between these two is consistently more than 6 degrees, which produces more curve than I would like and doesn't compress the ball as much as it could, which would produce more distance as well. Now, before I begin analyzing your swing in search of the swing components that cause these numbers, I need to stress that you can improve your score with some small changes without trying to change your core swing. And that approach to game improvement works best for many golfers. My analysis will cover those small changes, but will also cover those changes you would need to make to your core swing in order to achieve an even higher level of improvement. But those changes are a little more difficult, but can also be very rewarding. I'm comparing your swing to Grant Wade and have paused the swings at impact. I've drawn a box from the ankles to the top of the head, and you can see that Grant has a huge majority of his weight on his left side. You have more weight on your left side than your right, but not as much as Grant. By having more weight on your left side, you will place the low point of your swing in front of the ball, allowing you to hit fewer fat shots and more solid shots. Also at impact, Grant has his hands in front of the ball, creating a leaning shaft towards the target. This also places the low point in front of the ball, allowing him to hit down so he can hit the ball before hitting the ground. Grant also has an extended left arm that is in line with the shaft, which consistently controls the radius of his swing arc, so he can hit the ground in the same place every time. With your angles in the elbow and wrist, your angles will tend to change the radius length from swing to swing, causing fat and thin shots. In this post-impact position, we can see your left elbow bend even more and the left wrist start cupping. This is due to your out-to-in swing path. Grant has an in-to-out swing path. Now let's look at some of the swing positions prior to impact. Your setup looks very solid. Good extension in the arms, and you have your hands in front of the ball to preset a shaft length. The only adjustment you could make to be closer to what Grant is doing is to not set your weight into your back leg, but put a little bit more weight on your left foot. In the 3 position, this is when the left arm is parallel to the ground, you have hinged your wrist real well, and at this point have kept your left arm extended. The main difference is in how much you have swayed to the right, which shifts the low point of your swing behind the ball. Now you have made it more difficult to get back to impact with more weight on your left side. Grant still has more weight on his left side and simply rotates around a stable axis, which makes his swing simpler and more consistent. At the top of the swing, your left arm is broken down at the elbow, causing the club to go past parallel. The target line view identifies other important elements of the swing. The key difference worth noting here is the spine tilt. Grant is tilted over almost 20 degrees more than you. If you were to rebuild your core swing, I would start with rebuilding your setup. I've drawn a red line along the shaft, and the blue circles trace the club head during the backswing. Let's look at Grant's backswing. The club head passes through each circle, staying close to the shaft line, and when he gets to the 3 position, when the left arm is parallel to the ground, the shaft, which is now the blue line, is above the red line pointing at the golf ball. As I take your club back, it goes much deeper, much more behind you, so it goes severely deep and inward behind you. And then when your left arm gets parallel to the ground, your shaft is pointing at the ball as well, but it's below the red line. Now, once you had a change in your setup where you were tilted a little bit more, it would also change the swing plane of that shaft at address and create a different target plane for your backswing. Now, as I continue the backswing and through the transition to the downswing, I'll stop it again at the 5 position, which is when the left arm returns to parallel to the ground on the downswing. So as Grant goes back, he has finished his backswing at this point, and as he comes back down, and when his left arm is parallel to the ground again, the black line represents where the shaft is pointing, and it's just slightly above the blue line, which is where his shaft was in the backswing. As I do your backswing, you take it much further back. We can see how your right arm is very high. And then as you come back, you do what we call over the top. You make a little loop and you come down much steeper. Remember, the blue line was the shaft's position in the backswing, and the black line is the shaft's position in the downswing. So you've moved it up in quite a bit, and you're coming now into the ball very, very steep. Many times golfers make wrong moves for logical reasons. Because you are swinging down on a very steep angle, it will produce an out to in swing path, causing your hands and arms to come in very close to the body. This then requires your body to get out of the way and make room for those hands. As I continue the swing to impact, you will see that you can't correctly turn your lower body into the shot, but instead have to pull your legs back to get out of the way of the path of the hands and arms. Now, as we watch Grant, you can see how he turns his lower body into the shot. At impact, I can see his left back pocket. And so once if you wanted to rebuild your swing, we would rebuild your setup with the right amount of spine tilt in your initial setup posture. And then we would learn to swing around that angle. So your arms would be a little bit further away from your body. You would learn to swing in to out instead of out to in. And you would actually compress the ball a little bit more, and you would create either a much more powerful fade or you would have a draw. And so in a short amount of time, we could build that swing, but it would take some practice and work on that change. With the driver, you have the same issues. You start out a little too upright. As you take it back, you take it a little bit too inside in what we call flat. You then let that left arm bend a little bit, and you overswing. And now you do that what we call over the top move, and then you come back down very steep, which is one of the reasons that you have the negative attack angles with the driver, in that you swing down the ball. One of the changes that will be difficult for you with this particular swing plane is to try to hit up on the golf ball. To move the ball a little bit more forward and swing up may not sync up very well with this over-the-top steep swing, and that you would have to change your swing plane in order to hit the ball correctly on the upswing. And as you come down, again, you, instead of turning your lower body into the shot, you have to just kind of pull back and have no turn at all in your swing. And again, with the driver, you can see how you extend up onto your toes, trying to pull back because your arms are swinging in so far inside, you cannot turn. You've got to just get out of the way. But to your credit, you do this move, even though it's a different move, and it's not even noticeable to the human eye when you swing. It's only noticeable when you can see it in slow motion. But you do this move fairly repetitively, and so you do hit and control the shot fairly reasonably well. And that is why I said in the beginning, you can just make small changes and keep this core swing, and you can shoot lower scores, improve your putting. You already have a very good short game with your chipping and pitching. Keeping that left foot down and keeping a more stable axis on your left side would be a small change that you can do now, and that will help you hit better shots even without changing your core swings. Now, I am confident you could make a change in your core swing, and I can show you some drills that you would quickly start doing that change, and you would immediately start seeing some results of that change. I could have you hitting draws in our first session, but it's something that you would have to think about, and maybe we decide after our next session, is that you can kind of see what is involved in making a swing change and see if that's a direction you want to go.